Hey everybody, Tom Carnell here. Carnell Knowledge, the show I do here on Monday and Friday, and I do video shorts every day recommending and reviewing movies and books and records and all that kind of stuff. You can look right there. You'll see my dog lullabies us all asleep and snoring. If you don't know who I am, I was a buyer for Tower Records, Record Factory and Warehouse for a couple of decades. I published and wrote most of Carpet Nocta magazine, which was a dark art publication in the 90s. And then for about 14 years, I wrote for Fangoria and Dread Central as a journalist and an interviewer. Lately, I've been writing books and novels and short story collections of a variety of types. You can all go to Amazon and check those out. Okay, with that done, let's get to today's stuff. I have a bunch of stuff for you, movies and a book and some records. And I'm very excited about a lot of these. So let's get started. Our first movie is from 1959. It is called TOKAIDO YOTSUYA KAIDAN, aka The Ghost of Yotsuya. It is directed by Nobuo Nakagawa, who did Jigoku, which I reviewed in the last episode. Stars Shigeru Amachi, who is in Jigoku, Noriko Kitazawa, who is in The Ghosts of Kasane Swamp, another favorite of mine. I love Japanese ghost stories. Katsuo Wakasugi is in it, and a host of other folks. This is about a ghost of a samurai's wife who takes revenge on her husband. It is adapted from a story by Namboku Nutsuro IV, who lived from 1755 to 1839. It is one of many horror films that Nakagawa adapted for Shintohu back in the late 50s. Also one of the many adaptations of this play. Nakagawa directed over 100 films by the time he died in 1984. A lot of them were made between 1956 and 1960. All of them had tight deadlines and low budgets. Critics said of this film, of the many adaptations of this play, Nakagawa's is the classic. Fans of Gothic horror are gonna love this film. Since it began as a kabuki play, a lot of the presentation is still kind of stage-bound and set-bound. But as the film progresses, we follow two despicable characters who victimize one person after another via murder and adultery and theft, using people only to further their own nefarious plans. As with all stories like this, karma soon catches up with them via supernatural means. When the titular ghost finally does show up, they're pretty impressive. They're mostly accomplished using elaborate stage makeup and abstract lighting. They're really creepy. I was really shocked by how just genuinely unnerving they were. All of this is a solid kwaidan that is told well with a subtle visual flair. Highly recommended. It might be a little tough for you to get your mitts on this, but boy, is this a great film. Again, called The Ghost of Yotsuya. Our next film is from 1978, and it's completely different than the other one I just talked about. It's called La Montagna del Dio Cannibale, aka Slave of the Cannibal God, aka Mountain of the Cannibal God. It's directed by the great Sergio Martino, who directed the spaghetti western Manaya, and he also directed the Giallo Torso. Stars Ursula Andress, who is in Dr. No, Stacy Keach, who is Mike Hammer, and the synopsis is as follows. A woman is aided by her brother, a professor and an explorer, as they search the jungles of New Guinea for her anthropologist husband, who has vanished near a mountain that is said to be cursed. This film was banned in the UK as part of the video nasties fad. It's kind of a lightweight third world cannibal film. It's not Cannibal Holocaust. It's not Eaten Alive. It's not heavy on a lot of what the great Chaz Ballin used to call gut munching. It's more style than depth when compared to its contemporaries. Performances are all pretty solid. One trigger warning is there, as with a lot of these films, there is some animal death. A snake eats a monkey, and a lizard is eviscerated on camera. If you can handle that, then go ahead. If not, I'll understand if you skip this one. Martino does a decent job of it all, though, but the entire genre in which he's working is pretty thankless. It's kind of slumming for him, but third world cannibal films were really big back in the late 70s, early 80s. It's a good film. It's still a cannibal film, but it's a good film. There's not a lot here that is new. We've seen it all before, especially if you're sort of an aficionado of these kind of films. It's exploitive, it's sexist, and generally unappetizing, but third world cannibal film, it was a thing, and during the 70s and 80s, and in my opinion, that makes it worth at least checking out. I think there are better examples of this genre, but this one, if you don't have the stomach for things like Cannibal Holocaust, this is a fine enough way to get the feel of what those films are and not have to test your mettle. Recommended for Italian genre fans, cannibal film enthusiasts, and appreciators of Ursula Andress's assets, because she puts them on full display throughout this whole film. Up next, from 2001, this one, I'll tell you now, is a rough one, and it deserves every bit of its reputation. It is called KOROSHITA 1, aka Ichi the Killer. It is directed by the great Takashi Miike. Stars Tononobu Asano, Nao Omori, Shinya Tsukamoto, the director who did Tetsuo the Iron Man, has a role in this. Has to do with, it says, my synopsis says, as sadomasochistic Yakuza enforcer Kakahara searches for his missing boss, he comes across Ichi, a repressed and psychotic killer who may be able to inflict levels of pain that Kakahara has only dreamed of achieving. This film, along with Audition, pretty much broke Takashi Miike to Western audiences. I'll say that it is shocking to some, utterly exhilarating to others. There is not a lot of stones left unturned in this film. Set the tone for a lot of the Japanese films that followed it. And I'll tell you, I can talk for hours about Takashi Miike. This guy's a brilliant filmmaker. His range is amazing. You've got Ichi the Killer and Audition over here, and you've got things like Happiness of the Katakuris sort of here. He did a bunch of Yakuza films. And then he also did one of my favorite films of all time called The Bird People of China that is just absolutely beautiful. This film, though, is violent and it's subversive and it's intense. There is not a lot to recommend here other than that it's an important film for a lot of ways. The uninitiated may well find themselves both confused and deeply offended. There's murder, there's violence, there's people who get off on being hurt. It's something. And like I say, it's got a really rough reputation and it deserves it. It's a great film, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I would lump it in with things like Irreversible and that kind of thing. It's gonna stick with you. You're gonna need a little bit of time to walk this one off. I hesitate to go too far into the plot. Suffice it to say that it is manic and surreal and wholly intriguing. Cast is exemplary. Direction is godlike. Miike is easily one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. His range is phenomenal, and his willingness to go there and to shock audiences and confront audiences. There's a reason why with Showtime's Masters of Horror series that was being done, Nick Garris was in charge of that. The only episode that they refused to air was done by Takashi Miike, and it is something as well. So check that out if you get a chance. Moving on, let's go to 2011. A fairly mainstream movie called The Grey. It's directed by Joe Carnahan, who did Smoking Aces and The A-Team. Stars Liam Neeson, Dermot Mulroney, and Frank Grillo. Has to do with a plane crash that lands in Alaska. 6 oil workers are led by a skilled huntsman to try to survive while a pack of merciless wolves circle them, picking them off. The crash scene is harrowing. It's pretty amazing to watch. There's a scene where someone is injured and everyone's like, oh, we got to help him. And Liam Neeson gives a speech telling the guy, like, nope, you're not going to make it, and you need to make peace with that, like, right here and right now. And it is amazing in my eyes. It was absolutely amazing. That said, every decision that Liam Neeson makes in this, according to survival experts, is wrong. Leaving the crash site, going into the forest. He continually makes one bad decision after another, but earnestly, so people go, okay, let's do that. And it made me think, like, what is it about these survival films like this that people are find so compelling? Is it just the survival aspect, or is it something deeper than that? I don't know. But The Gray is very much edge of your seat stuff. Performances and direction are both stellar in this. In the course of my research, I found that a more definitive ending was shot but not used. Because the director felt the story had reached its emotional zenith. So he cut it and left the main character's fate ambiguous. It ends just as you think, oh, we're going to see a fight, and it just sort of ends. But I highly recommend this film for action film fans, survival film aficionados, and man versus nature completists. I like this film. It gets some positive reviews. A lot of people didn't like the ending, but what are you going to do? Very enjoyable. Again, The Gray. Up next, a thing I just watched, 1972. It's called Il Coltello di Ghiaccio, aka Knife of Ice. I've talked a lot on this show about Umberto Lenzi, who did things like Cannibal Ferox and Eaten Alive, and a ton of both giallo and poliziottiches. Carol Baker is in this, who at one point in her career was in films like Giant and then later in Kindergarten Cop. Alan Scott is in this. Has to do with a mute woman who finds herself the center of a series of murders in the mountains of Spain, while police suspect they are being done by some sort of drug-addled Satanists. This is one of Umberto Lenzi's classier films. I use that kind of loosely. Billed as a giallo, I'm not really sure that really fits. It has very little of the lurid aspects that subgenre has. It's Umberto Lenzi and Carol Baker's fourth collaboration. The music was done by Marcello Giombini, who did the music for Mario Bava's Knife of the Avenger. I'll tell you, it seems to be a reworking of the 1946 thriller The Spiral Staircase. The plots are fairly familiar. I'll tell you, it does get tedious to watch Carol Baker go around not talking and tapping on her chest and pointing at things. I get it, but cinematically, it I don't know. But it's important to the plot, so okay. But it just got a little tedious. It works in Spiral Staircase. In this case, I'm not so sure. It's competently made, but again, I think it's inconsequential, especially as a giallo. Things progress as one might expect until the shocking question mark reveal at the end. Vastly different from Spiral Staircase, but yeah, you can kind of see this one coming up Main Street. An ending any devotee of these kinds of things, again, we'll see coming. Recommended, I think, for Carol Baker fans, giallo enthusiasts, and Italian genre thriller aficionados. Did I like this? Yes. I recommend it with a lot of caveats. Is it a good giallo? No. Is it a good murder mystery thriller? Sure. It's okay. I think there are better ones out there, but yeah, Knife of Ice is always one of the ones that gets listed. I just watched a giant, you can find it on YouTube, called Giallo-a-thon, Volume 1 and 2. It's a 3-hour collection of trailers, and it was mentioned a lot with a lot of others. I even made a list of what was mentioned, but anyway, Knife of Ice, worth seeing. It's on Tubi for free, So if you're bored and you want something to have on, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, moving on to books. I have a book for you here I picked up at a local bookstore. It is called Nightshade, 20th Century Ghost Stories. It's edited by Robert Phillips, and it's from 1999. The synopsis on Amazon says a tantalizing and terrifying selection of the finest ghost and horror stories of the 20th century, featuring works by Truman Capote, Rudyard Kipling, Alison Lurie, Shirley Jackson, Henry James, William Trevor, Joyce Carol Oates, and Franz Kafka. There are 27 stories in the book. Features some tales that have appeared elsewhere. If you're a fan of these kinds of things, you will have undoubtedly seen a lot of the titles in this book, in other books, and other collections. But this is it's a nice presentation, as you can see. It's a fairly thick book, and it is very well put together. As usual, even with my own stuff, I would say the good, the bad, and the ugly apply. There are some things that are stellar, there are some things that are okay, and there are some things that just don't work. Something in this, though, for just about everyone. I just read that it's a sequel to a book from 1989 called The Triumph of the Night that Phillips did. I haven't found that. It's on my list as I go into bookstores. I always keep a list of what I'm looking for because I forget. But yeah, it's nicely packaged. Like I say, I picked this up for $7 at a local store here in Fairhaven, Washington, called Eclipse, which I've done a video on. Yeah, it's fine. It's one of those things where as you go through it, it's, again, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some things really resonate with you and some things don't. All right, moving on to records. Got a grip of really interesting stuff here. First record is called Stop Time. It's a self-titled record. It's from 1990. Very much jazz fusion from the 90s. It's very intricate and upbeat. The horns are predominant throughout the album. There are even some bluesy songs that are kind of cool. I was unable to find a lot about this band. It kept coming up that they were a Russian band that kept getting arrested because they would play non-state sanctioned songs. And I could never find out if they were two different bands, because Stop Time is a fairly common phrase that's used in jazz music. Couldn't really find out too much of them. I can just go from what I heard, and it's a great album. They're fine musicians, but I couldn't find it anywhere else other than Spotify. So take that for what you will. Moving on to 2026. This just came out not more than a week or so ago. Marius de Vries, who's an English producer, and Matt Robinson, they did the soundtrack to a film called The AI Doc, or How I Became an Apocalyptimist. Apocalyptimist, I guess is the word. It's another film score that works as a standalone record, mixes acoustic and electronic music. I found it great for sitting and listening to, but also just putting on and doing your thing. So it's good for active or passive listening. Atmospheric, there's a little bit of melancholy involved in it. At times there's even a bit of playfulness to it. It reminded me of some of the work of people like Mark Isham, Randy Edelman, some of the John Carpenter stuff, and Hans Zimmer. Fine record. I thoroughly enjoyed it and have played it numerous times since I picked it up. So again, it's a soundtrack to The AI Doc, or How I Became an Apocalyptimist. Moving on to our next record from 1994. The band is called Ship of Fools. The album is called Out There Somewhere. Ship of Fools are a UK-based experimental neo-prog band. This is their second and final record. One of the members, Lee Smith, who plays keyboards, went from doing this prog band stuff to playing with Cradle of Filth, which is quite a jump. This record, though, blends sweeping synths, ethnic-leaning guitars with psychedelic grooves, mostly instrumental. It does use clips from movies and news broadcasts, specifically like space launches and that kind of a thing. Reminded me of a host of things. Hawkwind, Jam Carrot. They reminded me of Ozric Tentacles, early Porcupine Tree, Pink Floyd, Hybria Spacefolk, and a band I just learned about, Quantum Fante. This is a good record. A lot of my opinions of old and new prog get kind of dismissive because so much of it, like old prog, a lot of it sounds like either Yes or Genesis, and new prog sounds like, you know, Tool or Dream Theater. This doesn't. This is sort of its own thing, and I found it very intriguing and quite enjoyable. Our next record is something else. So 2015, a band came out with a record called Landlord of Atlantis. The band is called the Fire Merchants, and who they are is they are a rock band started by Brand X guitarist John Goodsell and Genesis Frank Zappa drummer Chester Thompson. Now that right away should tell you should at least go to the description of this video and click on the link to hear it. This is, imagine a more aggressive, progressive Brand X, and you're pretty close. Someone in my reading described this as the Mahavishnu Orchestra meets Dream Theater, which I think is kind of fair in its own way, but this is an absolute burner of an album. Really impressive, very, very cool. Sadly, there are only 2 records by these guys, but geez, man alive, this thing is just, as soon as I was done listening to it, I started sending links to a lot of my friends. Who did it remind me of? Dixie Dregs. It reminded me of A Helmet of Gnats. It reminded me of the group Ohm, Liquid Tension Experiment, and There Goes Lullaby. And of course, Return to Forever. This is a great record. I am instantly a fan and am now on the lookout for the other album of theirs. Just phenomenal. Again, the Fire Merchants, Landlord of Atlantis. And our last record is from 2024. It's a self-titled record by the group Total Blue. They are a Los Angeles-based trio. The music blends electronic, new age, deep house, and ambient jazz. Features synthesizers, electronic drums, and a great fretless bass player. It sounds like something that might have been released back in the day off of labels like Windham Hill or Private Music. Good stuff. Reminded me of Manuel Gottsching, John Hassel, Mark Isham, Patrick O'Hearn, maybe even Trevor Horn. Very enjoyable. Just a terrific record. And again, all of these, I think I said it before, I'll say it again. In the description of this video, you will find links to full YouTube playlists. So don't just take my word for it. Go and click on those links and you can hear them for yourself. Whether you agree with me or not is entirely up to you. Don't just take my word for it. There's also a link to the Amazon page of the short story collection and trailers, in some cases full movies for all of the films that I talked about. And I think that's going to do it. Again, please subscribe to the channel. You will find more episodes like this, but also daily recommendations and review videos of just things I find. The idea of this whole show is that in the course of my travels, I see so many things that get pushed off to the side of the road or they slip through the cracks, and they deserve a much better and a much wider exposure. And that's what I'm trying to do here. There's so much music out there and there's so many movies out there that they just don't get the shine of like with film like the Marvel films or whatever. There's so many other things that are just stellar that just aren't going to get the appreciation that they deserve. So I'm hopefully turning people on to things that they may not have otherwise encountered. So there you go. And then lastly, I'm going to push June 15th. I have a new book coming out. It's called Open Late. It's a short story collection. You can go to my Amazon page and find that there. The Kindle, I think, is $4.99, and the print book is like $12.99. I'm very proud of it. There's a lot of stuff in there that's different. If I do something that I think is similar to something else, I'll go back and workshop it until it's different enough that it doesn't feel like stuff that you've already read. So yeah, please check that out. And then finally, one last thing. If you go follow through these shorts, I've been going through my bibliography of the books that I've written, and I'm doing one by one, just a real short video about what the book's about, what's inside, what was happening at the time, all of that kind of stuff, just so I can familiarize you all with some of that stuff that I've been doing. And that's going to do it. I appreciate you guys clicking on the links. There's a lot of stuff out there. Sadly, most of the stuff on YouTube is always pimping the same things. I'm trying to do something different. So please remember to like the video, subscribe, hit the bell, all of that nonsense. But mostly I just want to let you know that I really appreciate what it is, and that you have other options, and that if you're clicking on these things and watching them to the end, I greatly appreciate you. So thank you. And I'll be back in a few days with a whole grip of other stuff. I got a whole pile of stuff over here waiting to be reviewed. And until then, I'll see you later.